through practice number 2. Practice number 2. All right, so in practice number 2, we're working on, again, a fill-the-blank question. And this one is just a simple, easy flow chart, right? They're going to start at the top and go all the way directly down to the bottom. You're listening for the synonym language, work out your, right? Make a, right? You're the synonym for that. Divide into. So you're listening for that synonym language. That's what you're listening for. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play the audio. It's just going to go through questions 27 through 30.
Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Well, the first thing is to find out exactly what's required in the exams.
Would it help to get hold of some past papers?
Yes, they'll help to make it clear.
Right, I'll do that. Then what?
Then you can sort out your revision priorities based on what's most likely to come up. I put these on a card and read them through regularly. But that isn't enough in itself. You also need a timetable to see how you can fit everything in the time available. Then keep it in front of you while you're studying.
I've done that before, but it hasn't helped me.
Maybe you need to do something different every day. So if you break down your revision into small tasks and allocate them to specific days, there's more incentive to tackle them. With big topics, you're more likely to put off starting.
Good idea.
And as I revise each topic, I write a single paragraph about it. Then later I can read it through quickly, and it helps fix things in my mind.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I also write answers to questions for the exam practice. It's hard to make myself do it, though.
Well, I'll try. Thanks a lot, Jeannie. That's a great help.
No problem.
See you around.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to go through the answer choices, but before I do that, let me ask some people to not do something. When I'm playing the audio, please do not write a question or anything in the chat box, because what you're doing is you're making the chat box pop up and appear on people's screens. So we have to be respectful of what other people are doing at the time when they're answering questions. So please don't do that, right? Please don't do that. I didn't think I would have to say that, but when I'm playing the audio, 99% of the students in this class are trying to focus and answer questions. And you all should have the maturity to wait until the audio is finished and ask your question, because you're making the chat box pop up, and that's not cool. Don't do that, please. All right, so I'm gonna go over the answer choices very quickly. Number 1 was priorities. Number 2 was timetable. Number 3 was small task. And number 4 is single paragraph. Those are the 4 answer choices that they gave you. For number 27, they said sort out your revision priorities. And so instead of saying work out, they said sort out. And then also for number 27, they had a word order change. Meaning they said revision priorities. And then number 27 is priorities for revision. For number 29, instead of saying divide, they said break down. That was the paraphrasing. And then for number 30, instead of saying write one, they said write a single. So again, like I told you, it's all about hearing, paraphrasing, and synonyms. Now there's some questions that I'll answer. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like some of you all were talking about, does it say one word and a number? It's right there at the top. It says no more than 2 words and or a number for each answer. No more than 2 words and or a number. Okay. And so, no, I can't play it again, Bruce, because I have to get to these other practices, Bruce. We're only on practice number 2, and I'm trying to get to practice number 5. And if I don't get to practice number 5, you're not going to be able to do everything, right? Because at 3 o'clock, I'm stopping, everybody. I'm stopping at 3 o'clock because at 3 o'clock, I have to teach a TOEFL class. So if you want me to get through all the practice, you got to let me get through it. I can't do any two-time playing. I'm sorry. But like I said, Bruce, after a few days, if the recording is done well, then I am going to upload this in the Udemy course, and then you can listen to it again at that time. This is a flow chart. It's not a diagram. It's a flow chart. All right, let's go to practice number 3. So for practice number 3, we're going to be listening to fill-the-blank questions, the standard fill-the-blank questions, and we're listening to a summary fill-the-blank questions. Let me say in advance that it says write 1 word only for each answer. Write 1 word only for each answer. You should always read the directions. Write 1 word only. Okay? Really quickly, no, you have to write timetable. You cannot write 27th. Right? Everybody understand you can't write a substitute answer. Okay? You can't write a substitute answer. Now, I'm about to start the audio. I would please ask you to be respectful of everybody's journey and what their goals are. And at this time, do not put any questions in the chat box. Okay? I would appreciate it. And those that are answering questions would appreciate it also. All right, so I'm going to start the audio now.
Exam Practice Test 6, Listening Part 4. You will hear a biology student talking about water and how much people need to drink each day. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hi everyone. My presentation today is looking at drinking water. Now we know that water is a vital nutrient for human life. But exactly how much of it do we need to drink? Well, today I'm going to review some of the research. So, for example, there's a common idea that we should drink 8 glasses of water every day. But researchers say that the 8 glasses a day rule is a myth. Some people might need more than 8 glasses, some a lot less. The only group for whom the rule is useful seems to be the elderly, because they don't always feel thirsty, even when their bodies are actually short of water. So for them, 8 glasses a day might be a good rough guide. Okay, let's look next at what effects water has on the body. One issue of interest is weight loss. And there are lots of theories about this. It's been claimed that dieters should drink more at nighttime, or drink when they first wake up. But there's no research to back this up. But actually, there is some evidence from studies to show that subjects who drank a lot of water and then had their meals lost more weight. but that may only be because the water filled them up and reduced their appetites. I also read some of the research done by Dr. Amaldi, who's looked in depth at this whole issue of drinking water. And one of his studies does support the common claim that water is good for the stomach. In particular, it seems to increase the rate at which digestion takes place, which overall has a number of health benefits. Another interesting study I read about took place in the US, and this one was investigating the effects of dehydration. That is, not having enough water in the body. And what the US study indicated was that when a subject was low on water, their body's ability to regulate its own temperature was compromised compared to a properly hydrated subject. Now, there's another frequent claim about water that I was interested in looking into. But in my reading anyway, I could find no evidence at all to support the idea that hydration improves or enhances the skin in any specific way. So that claim may be a bit of a myth as well. Another interesting aspect of this concerns the brain. And I read about a couple of research studies investigating how water intake may affect brain function. In the first study, the research subjects were female, and the less hydrated group were affected more frequently by headaches compared to those who drank more water. In the second study, the research subjects were all male, and this time a lack of water in the body was associated with a number of findings. In particular, the subjects in this group reported increased feelings of anxiety when dehydrated. So, in summary, we can see that, yes, there are some health benefits from drinking plenty of water, but in many of these studies, the benefit was quite small. And it's probably true that in general, on the internet and so on, the benefits of drinking lots of water are overstated. But what about the opposite? Can you drink too much water? Well, it's possible, but it's not a common problem. Actually, the human body kind of prevents us drinking too much. Australian researchers discovered that when subjects were fully hydrated, they actually found swallowing problematic. Their bodies just wouldn't allow it so easily. So that's an interesting finding. It is true that people do occasionally become sick from drinking too much water, although it is rare. So, there are recorded instances of illness among athletes who have been encouraged to drink a lot, for example. According to doctors, people who have drunk too much water too quickly have become what's called hyponatremic. Basically, this means that the makeup of their blood has changed, and it now contains such a high proportion of salt that they suffer an adverse effect. But it's very rare for this sort of hyponatremia to be a dangerous condition. So, based on the reading I've done, the best advice is to trust your body. Drink water when you're thirsty, but you probably don't need to drink more often than that.
All right, let's go ahead and go through the answer choices. Before I do that, let me say that you all have made me very happy because nobody asked a question during the playing of the audio, which was very awesome to see. So thank you very much for doing that, because some people are actually trying to simulate the taking of the exam, and this is very, very helpful for them. So thank you for not doing that. I'm going to go ahead and go over the answer choices now. Number 31 is elderly. They said except for, when they said except for the paraphrasing was the only group for whom, and the answer is elderly. Number 32 is meals. Number 32 is meals before equals and then and there is something they say. I'll look at the transcript for it. But number 32 is meals. Number 33 is digestion, where they say it speeds up is equal to increasing the rate. Number 34, the answer is temperature. Cannot control is equal to ability to regulate. So I'm hoping that you're seeing it's all about synonyms and paraphrasing. That's the reason why I had you work on that exercise in the very beginning, is because if you don't hear the paraphrasing and the synonyms, you miss the answer choice. Number 35 is skin. Question says results in better. Audio said improves the condition. 36 is headaches. 37 is anxiety. Suffered more. And then it is the same as them saying reported the increase. Swallowing, having difficulty, finding problematic. Athletes, particularly, for example. And number 40 is salt. You can see for number 40, right before the blank line, it says have high levels of. So when you heard contain high proportion, right after that, they say the answer choice. So I'm hoping that you're able to see. I'm hoping that you're able to see that it's about paraphrasing and synonym recognition, and you have to get better at that skill. It doesn't get better just jumping from test to test. That's not what I want. Okay. All right. Okay, that's the wrong transcript for that one. I wanted to point out to you, and maybe I'll come back to it because I have two more practices to get through, a practice 4 and practice number 5, was before they got to the summary, they had a lot of filler language. Like they had a lot of language that they said that was really irrelevant. And many times when they have a lot of this excess language, they have that excess language because they're trying to throw you off sometimes. Right? They're trying to throw you off sometimes. And so for practice number 4, we're now going to do practice number 4, and I'm going to try to get to practice number 5. For practice number 4, we're answering 2 parts, actually. You're answering the diagram, or really the diagram, filling in the blanks of the diagram, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And then also you are answering the short answer questions, right? So we're going from 21 all the way to 30. All right, now, of course, with this one, they break it into parts. First, you'll do 21 to 25. Then they'll stop the audio and give you time to look at 26 to 30, and then start the audio and you answer 26 to 30. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to start the audio again from this point forward until the end. Please don't ask a question in the chat box. Thank you.
Recording 49.
You will hear 2 students discussing an assignment. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Melanie. What did you think of the assignment that we got today? It looks interesting, doesn't it?
Yes, Ellen. I've always been interested in recycling, but there's a lot of research to do.
Yes, there are a lot of things I'm unsure of, so it's going to be good working with you.
Okay. Well, why don't we start by making a flowchart from the notes our tutor gave us?
Yes. So, on one side, we could have the paper production cycle, here on the left, and on the other side, the recycling.
Good idea. Let's start at the top with the production. The first step in the process is to get the raw materials.
Yes, and they tend to come from pine forests.
Okay. And then the bark is removed from the outside of the tree, and after that, the wood is chopped up. That's the first 3 stages.
It sounds a bit complicated after that. It says water is added, and then the mixture is heated and made into pulp. This will be the thick paste that is used to make paper.
Yes, you're right, because after that they use a machine to make the paper, and we can put that right in the centre of the flowchart, because it's also where the recycled paper joins the process.
Yes. So, once the paper has been produced in the machine, what happens then?
Well, I think we should write print as the next step, because this is when newspapers, magazines, etc. are produced. And we could also add that they have to be distributed to stores and people's homes.
Right. Then the recycling bit starts. The old paper's collected, and then it says it's taken somewhere so that someone or something can sort it. I imagine there are different kinds of paper. or things like paper clips that need to be removed.
Yes. Let's have a step after that. Now, how did our tutor say they do this? Oh, yes. It involves chemicals. So, how is your chemistry?
Well, not very good, I'm afraid. But this is how they remove ink. So, this is definitely going to need a bit of research.
Right. The last step in the recycling section is similar to the last step in the production process, with heating and pulping, before the cycle begins again.
Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
So, I think going through the processes helped. Now, we need to decide how we're going to do this assignment.
Yes. I guess what we need to do is take the processes and divide them up between us. But we could start thinking about an introduction.
Yes, okay. Well, I can start doing that. I think I have enough to go on already.
Good. And there are a few areas where we need a lot more information. I think I'll start with something easy. Let's say the paper collection. I could go to the resource centre to do some research.
Well, I think a better idea would be to approach someone who's involved in the process. What about contacting the council?
Oh, good idea. Yes, I'll do that instead. They're bound to have some information. And I know just the thing to add to our work to make it even more interesting.
And what's that?
Well, in my last assignment, I added a few pictures, and the feedback I got was that this wasn't academic enough. So what might really bring it to life would be to include some data, provided we can find some.
Yes, that sounds excellent. Well, we certainly have a lot to do, and not much time to do it in.
You're right. I think we have about 5 weeks, so I suggest we create a plan of work today. The end of the month is nearly 3 weeks away, and then we have a few days holiday.
Yes, so let's see if we can get the first draft done by then, so we can take a short break.
Okay. Then after the break, we'll have just over a week to complete it. I wonder if we could get someone to review our work for us a few days before the deadline, so we can make some final changes. What about your friend, Henry?
Well, the best person would be our tutor. Henry's very good, but he's taking a whole week's holiday, and there won't be enough time when he returns.
Okay then, that's fine.
That is the end of section 3. You now...
Okay, let's go ahead and go over the answer choices. Number 21 is pine forest. They mentioned raw materials, and then they gave you some filler language, and then they said it comes from the pine forest. Number 22 is water. Number 22 was really straightforward. Water is added, right, for number 22. And then we're moving up, and they told you we're going to put paper produced in the center of the chart. And then next naturally it goes here. And they said write print as the next step. Write print as the next step. And then they said add distribution, though, you know, something about distributing the materials to the stores. Number 24, they said collect used paper And then for number 24, they said sort. Old papers collected. So old papers, used paper, old papers are collected so something or someone can sort them. All right. Number 25 is remove ink. They said the step after that, right, after the sorting, the step after that, and then they talked about chemicals and chemistry. So they played around with the word form of chemicals and chemistry. Then they had some filler, and they said this, or they said this or these, but they're using a pronoun here. This, meaning the chemistry, is how they remove ink, right? Removing ink. And the answer is use chemicals to remove ink, right? So that's how we do the flow chart. All right, I have a couple of questions before I go to the next thing. Can you please, Keno, can you please confirm 21? It looks like everyone heard Pine Forest. Okay, give me one moment. I'll see if I typed it wrong here. I'll check if I typed it wrong. I will check. Give me one moment, please. I'll check it right now. So give me one moment, please. All right, everybody. So thank you for bringing that up. I did make a typing mistake, and it is Forest with an S. Right? It is Forest with an S. No. I just confirmed it. It is Forest with an S. All right. When I was typing, I was manually typing in these answer choices, and I forgot to put the S. So yes, it is from Pine Forest. Because if you just look at it grammatically, everybody, if you look at it grammatically, for the answer to be Pine Forest, they would have to have the article A after from. It would have to say get raw materials from a Pine Forest. But there's no article A there. And so this has to be plural, Pine Forest. Right, so we can just look at it just grammatically and see that I made a typing mistake. All right. On the next one, we can see the answer choices were the introduction, the council, some data, first draft, and tutor. Right? So start thinking about, start working on. Number 27 is interesting because for number 27, let me explain to you what happened on number 27. For number 27, they said we need to get more information. And then Melanie made a suggestion, and then the man dismissed her. He was kind of sexist. I don't know. Any of the women in my class here may have experienced this before, where some guy you're working with dismisses your suggestion. But he dismissed her suggestion, and then he made a suggestion and said we should approach someone involved in the process. The council, they're bound to have new information. And then she confirmed it. So she said something, he said, no, we're not doing that. You should approach the council because they're going to have good information. And then she confirmed it. And then the same thing happened in number 30. They talked about who they should ask for a review. And then she made a suggestion. And then he dismissed her again. And then he said we should see a tutor. And then she just said, well, okay. Yeah, well, that's fine. But you have to recognize that happens sometimes. At times, somebody can confirm that they're giving the right answer, and then at other times you have sexist guys like Alan, who thinks he knows more than Melanie, and everything that Melanie says, he dismisses it. But Melanie is nice enough to go ahead and say, okay, we'll do that. All right, but those are the answer choices: introduction, counsel. Those words that are in parentheses. Those words, yeah, he's mansplaining to her. Those words that are in parentheses. Alan is doing a lot of mansplaining. The words in parentheses are not necessary, right? They're not necessary. Because on number 28 they said the key word here is interesting, make it more interesting. And then you had to hear the synonym language, bring it to life. What did they bring it? What are you bringing to life? You're bringing some data to life. So the word data is directly connected to the paraphrasing of interesting. That's why the answer is data. All right, we got some time, so I'm going to do this last one very quickly, and then I have to go to my next class. All right, practice number 5. I'm trying to show you all the different versions of the fill the blank question. This is a table. Write no more than 3 words and or a number. For answers, write no more than 3 words and or a number. Here's the audio. We're going to go through the table all the way from 21 all the way to 30, and then I'm going to quickly give the answer choices. So please listen carefully, and please don't ask any questions from this point forward while the audio is playing.
Section 3. You will hear a discussion between a tutor and an education student called Sandy about the student's dissertation. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hello, Sandy. How have you been getting on with your dissertation?
Fine. And I've been working hard on the various action points we agreed on our last tutorial.
Do you want to talk me through what you've done?
Yeah, sure. Well, we agreed on 3 main targets for me to aim for. The first one was to find out about suitable data analysis software.
Yes.
And what I decided to do was to look through catalogues specialising in IT.
That's a good idea. What did you come up with?
I found the names of 2 promising ones.
Right.
But I also thought it'd be worthwhile talking to a lecturer.
Oh, right. Who did you see?
Jane Prince. Do you know her? She's in the computer centre?
Yes, of course. She's the new head.
Yes, well, she was very helpful.
Oh, that's good. Did she suggest anything in particular?
Yeah, she recommended software called VVAT and said I should book up for a couple of practice sessions using VVAT.
Great. I'm sure you'll find them useful.
And, of course, the second target was to draw up a survey checklist, which...
Yes, you emailed me it last week.
Have you had a chance to look?
Of course. I think it's good. Very much on the right lines. I'd say your first 2 sections are spot on.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't suggest that you change anything there, but in section 3 you really do need to have questions on teaching experience.
Yeah, I was thinking that section looked a bit short.
Right.
And my third target was do further reading on discipline.
Oh, yes. I mentioned a couple of writers, didn't I?
Yes, well, I got hold of the Banerjee, and I thought that was excellent, but I'm afraid I didn't manage to get hold of the essays about classroom management. You know, the ones by Simon Erickson. The bookshop said it was out of print, and the library doesn't have a copy.
Oh, right. And I'm afraid I've lent my copy to another student. What I suggest you do is try the library again. This time apply for it through the service called Special Loans. Have you done that before? You're entitled to 6 books a year.
Yes, no problem. That's what I'll do.
So, lots of useful work done.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
So let's look at some new targets. We'll start by having a chat about your chapter 1. I very much enjoyed reading it. Your written style is very clear, and you've included lots of interesting descriptions of education in your target area. I've just got a couple of suggestions for some additional work.
Of course. Could I just ask, what do you think I should call it?
Well, I'd go for something like context review. What do you think?
Well, short and to the point.
Exactly. Now, as regards specific areas to work on, I'd be quite interested to have a few more statistics about the schools in the different zones.
Oh, that wouldn't be a problem. I can get them from the internet.
Great. And although you did make a reference to quite a few different writers, I think you should aim to cite more works written later than 2000.
Okay. That's more difficult, but I can try. When do you want that done by?
Oh, it's not urgent. I should aim for the end of term. But in the meantime, I think you should also be thinking about chapter 2.
Should I be drafting it already?
No, but I think you should note down its main sections.
Yes. You know, I always find that the hardest part...
I always find it helpful to put some ideas on index cards.
Yeah.
And then you can sort them and even lay them out on the floor. It's a real help.
Well, I'll certainly try it. When would the deadline be for that?
My advice would be to get it done before you embark upon the research. You can always...
All right, let's go ahead and go over the answer choices. Again, we're dealing with the situation where the man was interrupting her. That happens in real life, and they try to make it as real as possible. But that was what the guy was doing. The answer choices: number 21 is catalogs. 22 is computer center. You can have the English or the British spelling. 23 is checklist. 24 is teaching experience. 25 is classroom. 26 is review. 27 is schools. 28 is 2000. 29 is end of term. And 30 is research. Again, 21 is catalog. 22 catalogs. 22 is computer center. 23 is checklist. 24 is teaching experience. 25 is classroom. Well, number 25 for classroom. They said this line about Erickson, and the answer, they reversed the word order. They said the answer choice, and then they talked about Erickson. So they change up word order. 26 is review, 27 is schools, 28 is 2000, 29 is end of term, and 30 is research. Can you write specialized catalogs for number... if they said the word specialized, I don't remember if they said it or not. I don't remember if they said the word specialized or not. But if they said the word specialized and you wrote that, it will be fine. All right. So everyone, thank you very much for joining me in this live class. I'm sorry, but that is the end and I have to go. I hope that you have a much deeper understanding of how to really handle a fill-the-blank question. And also, I hope that you have a deeper understanding of how to, of what role paraphrasing and synonyms, what role they play and being able to answer questions on the listening section. The goal of the course is to educate you on what you need to do to be successful. And once you know what's going on, once you know how they're hiding answers, you can be successful. And I hope I've been able to make that more clear to you now. So thank you very much and have a great day. All right, so the date is April 25th, and this is a live listening class for the IELTS exam. This live listening class covers the general and the academic exams because, as you know, the general and academic exams cover the exact same material. As I stated in the announcement, this is going to be from Cambridge book number 13, and I'm going through test number 2. And if you have any questions during the class, please, please keep your questions or type your questions in the chat box. And also, please keep your microphone on mute. Keep your microphone on mute. All right, because if you do that, I can have a really clean recording and I can upload it into the class. If you cannot keep your microphone on mute, then I will be forced to remove you from the class because that is a disturbance and a distraction, and you have to be able to control that. All right, so I'm going to go through just a little bit of brief information, and then we're going to get directly into the listening. The way it's going to work is I'm going to play it. I'm going to be going through answering, and then I'll be reviewing the answer choices. I'll be going over the different types of tricks or the different types of traps that they are using to disguise or hide where the answer is, because a lot of students are not clear that the listening for the IELTS is not direct. Right? There's certain things that they're doing to hide or disguise when the answers are said. And once you know that and you know how to spot that, then normally you'll be okay. And so that's really, really important to understand. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. As you know, for the listening, there are different question types. You, of course, have your fill-the-blank traditional questions. You have map questions. You have a table question. You have a matching multiple choice question, right? You have different types of questions that you have to do. In the course, I cover all these different types of questions. In section number one is the easiest section. It's very, very direct. They still try to trick you and fool you in section number 1. But when you're dealing with section number 1, your goal should be in section number 1 to really get none wrong. Maximum just get 1 wrong in section number 1, because you have to make, if you're planning on getting a score over a 7, okay, that's what I'm talking about. In section number 2, it gets progressively a little bit more difficult in section number 2. A little bit more difficult in section number 2, right? Everyone, please keep your microphone mute. It's a very simple request to keep your microphone mute. All right. And now in section number 3, now section 1 and 2 are almost the same difficulty level. When you get to section number 3, that's when you make the big jump. And when I say you make the big jump, the question types don't change. It's still fill the blank, it's still multiple choice. The question types don't change. What changes is the length of the question, in terms of how many words are in the question, and the length of the answer choices. Also, the words that you have to be able to spell become more difficult. And then, of course, when you get to section number 4, again, question type doesn't change. Primarily, section number 4 is a fill-the-blank question. However, you can see multiple choice questions in section 4 also. And if you're doing the listening to the lectures within the course, you'll see within section 4 there are different question types that you can encounter, but I would say probably the majority of the time is going to be fill the blank. Now, for most students, they handle sections 1 and 2 fairly well. Section 3, they handle okay. Normally, it's section 3 or 4, which is what really determines your score. Section 3 or 4 really determines your score. And so if you really are trying to practice and get better, you want to try your best to master sections 3 and 4. All right, so we have these different question types. I'm going to run through this really quickly. Right, this is the traditional fill the blank question type. You also have a map kind of question, right? And with map questions, they're fairly straightforward, but you have to really know your directional language. Left, right, north, east, around the bend, in the corner. You have to know your directional language very well for that type of fill the blank question. And then you have your multiple choice question types. You have your standard multiple choice question, ABC. And this question type can appear in all sections, section 1, 2, 3, and 4. You also have this type of multiple choice question where you have to pick 2 answer choices. You have to pick 2 answer choices. And it doesn't matter if it's A and C. If for example, if the answers are A and C, it doesn't matter on your answer sheet if you put A then C or C then A, it doesn't matter. And then finally, you have this type of multiple choice question where you have multiple choice selections in a box, and you have the questions below, and you have to choose A, B, or C as the match for that particular question. Right? Okay. So coming up next, we're going to go ahead and get into Cambridge IELTS book number 13. I'll be going through test number 2 in the listening part. I'm going to try to get through most of it. Hopefully I can within the time constrictions that I have to deal with. I'm going to try to get through most of it. It depends on how many questions there are afterwards and things like that determines how much I can get through. All right, now, before I go on to the next thing, does anyone have any questions at all? If you have a question, type it in the chat box, and I will try to answer your question right now before we get started. Okay? All right. I have one question. Let's see. Sir, the time duration. The time duration for what, Shashank? Your question is vague. The time duration for this class? This class is limited to a 2-hour time limit. I should be able to finish up before then. But like I said, it depends on how many questions people have afterwards and things like that. How about how fast I can move through it? Okay? But that should be enough time for me to get through it all. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Yeah, the multiple choice questions and the map questions are, well, I think the multiple choice question is difficult because a lot of students don't really know how to do it and they answer the question wrong. Hopefully, after this class today, you'll have a little bit better understanding of how to really do a multiple choice question. Map questions just really deal with directions. And if you practice it enough time, I have a lot of examples of doing map questions in the course, in the Udemy course, and it really just takes practice with doing that. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. Omar Jamil is saying, I think there is enough time to go through the pulling out the keywords in part number 3 or part number 4. There is enough time. right? And I know there's enough time because, there are a lot of students that I teach that get scores of 8 and 9 and they're listening and they're able to do it. So there's enough time. Whether or not you're able to do something very often depends on your English ability. And that's just an honest statement that I'm making, right? Very often because really what you're talking about is I can't process the English fast enough, right? I can't process the English fast enough. And you have to be able to process English fast enough. One more question. Yes, the answers have to be exactly how they say that. You can't, I get asked this question all the time. What if the answer is singular and I write the answer as plural, is it wrong? Yes, it's going to be wrong. Because there are very few exceptions where an answer can be singular and plural. It depends on the grammatical structure of the question. So if you don't put exactly the right thing, then your answer is going to be wrong. And Farouk, yes, you could write the answers in all caps on the computer-based test. It doesn't matter. All caps, all small, doesn't matter. All right, so everybody, I'm going to be starting with section number 1. I'm going to play in